Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm VeVe Magic, and today I am joined by an OG pioneer of Twitter Spaces, as well as one of the early adopters of VeVe, who I just refer to as Prop. But you're a man of many names, and welcome to the show. What is our name today?
I feel like I want to go back to being Dr. Liquid, but I think
Oh,
we'll
I
we'll
forgot
just
about that one.
yeah, we'll just stick with propagandist. We'll be prop today.
And
Yeah,
then I noticed I went into Spaces yesterday, and I noticed what did you name? What was your name yesterday, Mister like something
Mr.
five?
First, right, Mr. First 500, because I found out that according to putting cheeks data, I might be amongst the first 500 who signed up and made an account on the app. I think I'm cutting it pretty close though. Cutting it close. We'll see.
Well, bravo. I
Yeah.
can't say the same for myself. So, I would love to know how you came to find VeVe and sign up.
Yeah, well, I came to find VV like most of the probably two 2001st people on the app, which is they were into crypto, probably into the OMI token, and someone told them about OMI or VV on a Telegram group, right?
Oh,
That's most of the stories you'll hear. But I did start my own Telegram crypto alpha group before they were alpha groups. Just somebody who's in their second cycle in crypto and investing in crypto and all that stuff. And you finally figure out it's better to do it with the community, with a team. And there was a young woman in that group chat, actually the only woman, and I made sure I wanted to have a woman's opinion in that group chat. And she didn't say much, but one day, I guess maybe like a month later, she just comes out and she says, "Yo, check out this token. It's called OMI." And I said, "Okay, cool." She doesn't really give much feedback in the group, so I took what she said seriously. Looked at the token. I think I bought it um a couple days later. She went all in on it, and like within a couple of weeks, her investment was worth maybe like 55K
wow,
on that OMI. I'm pretty sure she only bought maybe like under
wow.
$1,000 worth of OMI and turned it into like over 50K. Yeah. So she didn't really get into the collectibles because she made so much money on the OMI. But she said, "Hey, check it out. They have an app, all this stuff." I download the app, and as a crypto person, you're skeptical. Anything that comes from the crypto world, you're like, as long as it looks good, we can make some money, but you don't really expect the project to be anything, right?
Mhm.
You don't really expect them to do anything and be anything. So when she said, they have license with DC and other things, I said, okay, it's probably some weird license that really doesn't matter, just whatever. So I download the app, make the account, and the app is so broken that after I log in, it just doesn't work or something. Um, like I see the homepage, it looks cool, interesting, better than what I thought it would look, but it doesn't work.
Mhm.
So that was early February. That was somewhere between February 2nd and February 16th that I know for sure. Um, and after that, I come back to the app just because I'm paying attention to the OMI token, and
Right.
obviously the price goes up. And when I found out my friend she makes all of this money, I'm like, oh, maybe I should go back to the app and see what's going on. So I
Right.
come back into the app and it actually kind of works and it doesn't boot me out or anything like that. And then I buy a Joker FA out of the store and I buy um a Jason Fabrik Batman
Mhm.
and then I buy and then I do the drop and I buy uh a prima donna,
Mhm.
my first pony. And then and then it kind of goes on from there, you know. Yeah. But that's
Interesting.
how I found out about it. Yeah.
And so, speaking of Batman, what do you think about the drops and everything they're doing right now and rewarding early adopters and set holders with these blue and yellow Batmans?
Yeah, this is what people were asking for early on, when it came to the Blue Cape, um,
Mhm.
Todd McFarlane Batman. Um, on VeVe's birthday, their first birthday, which I believe was October 15th or 14th last year. Um, that's what we were calling for. We were calling for them to um, drop that Batman for people who hold the season one first set,
I remember that.
right? So, uh, they listened and they took their time and did it the right way. I think it's a pretty good drop. I think that what they're doing, and then airdropping the Rizzo, to early adopters, as well as the dad bod Batman. It's a really good gesture. I really like it.
Yeah. What do you think about the mint size?
The min size is really good. Also, I think that you're sort of scaling it to the proportions of the physicals, because I do believe the black and white Batman is maybe like 5 or 6 thousand or more,
Mhm.
and the blue and white, which is a Japanese version, I do believe is like 500 editions from what I hear. So, they're scaling it down to less than half of the FA. It makes sense. It all makes sense. And the resale being 1,000, about 700 less, give or take, than the 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 first edition. It makes sense. I like it.
Yeah, I agree. Were you into any other NFT projects prior to VeVe, or were you just kind of strictly crypto?
I was strictly crypto. If I knew about NFT projects, and again, this is like, well, I was just having this discussion with someone else actually, yesterday,
Hmm.
that it's kind of paradoxical, because if I would have knew about other NFT projects, I would have been into VeVe. I would have bought a bunch of apes and crypto
Hmm.
punks and stuff like that. I would have blew the bag going for those, right? So maybe I wouldn't even be in VeVe. Maybe I would be a Dr. J, and maybe not like VeVe. Yeah, who knows? But I think ultimately I would come back because I love the collectibles. I love the IP that they're dropping, which is why I'm still here, because in my heart, in my intention, I'm a collector, and I like but it's not about liking the collectibles and the artwork and the IP. It's actually not really just about that. It's about how the team is creating it and presenting it to us, and how they're doing it, which can be confusing to some people, because in some ways people see it as a very business type of way of how they're doing it. But on the other hand, depending on how you want to look through the glass, you can see it as they're generating an excitement that is never had before with some of these characters or artworks or books or comics, right? So, I think that's another way to see it, and that's one of the reasons why I'm still here and why I collect.
So, what kind of stuff do you collect outside of VeVe? Physical things, or?
Probably the thing I collect the most is probably clothing, which is sort of what a lot of people do, but
Yeah.
I guess the clothing that I collect is probably a little different than what other people collect, and it's
When you view it as art, right? Like,
I do view certain clothing as artwork. I do. Yeah. Other than that, I mean, my first intentional bit of collecting was around movie stubs.
hmm,
I had a pretty good collection of those. I remember my first one that I collected was uh the first X-Men movie in 2000. I started from there and I had a bunch. I had Star Wars movie stubs, and I lost them all. I
no way.
lost them all. Yeah, yeah. They were in a box of a bunch of Donruss baseball cards, um, and other really cool things from actually the home run race between Sosa and McGuire. Had stuff, memorabilia from that.
Ugh.
I had I had these really big um action figures from Star Wars from 1992, still in
Wow.
the box. I had a Darth Vader still in the box, like the ones where you push a button and it makes the noise, like with the breathing and the
Yeah.
lightsaber noise. Yeah, I had Obi-Wan, a Darth Vader. Um, yeah, and some other stuff. I lost all that stuff in a box when I moved from down south. Yeah,
What a
yeah,
bummer.
yeah. Sucks, but probably stuff I can get back. But it would have been nice to have. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I have a question from shout out to Silicon Secure. So if you read this in advance, you're probably like, that's weird wording because it wasn't my wording. But to quote him, you roam like a wolf. What's your current VV position and strategy?
Oh, that's a question from him.
Yep.
What's my my current strategy? Um, was is that what the question was? Strategy and what
Yes.
else?
So you kind of like do your own thing. So he's curious, like what's your current position and strategy? Like,
Position and strategy. Right.
mhm.
Okay. Well, I guess my current position is a bit of a holding pattern here. Um, because I do look at collecting now as not just collecting, but also investing. I have
Mhm.
to be careful on in how much I spend because I do have other things that I have to invest in life. It's not like I have a job and then I spend my disposable income on NFTs, right? Whereas like if I overspend right now, it's okay. And then I can just maybe take profit in a year from now or 2 years. It's like that's not how I run my life right now, right? So my position is why buy now when I can buy it for the same price or cheaper later, right? So I think that what happened in this cycle where we saw values just go crazy is that everyone who's still around and has seen that would be asking someone like me, why aren't you hopping back in?
Mhm.
Because they're still looking at the old way or the old world, or they're considering the old. And this is like this was just a few months ago, but
Yeah, it's crazy.
you know, and that's how fast things move. But you have to be a visionary a bit, even if you're just playing one on TV. You have to be able to see into the future and risk either um, losing out or call the bottom, and have your price target and come back in when it's convenient for you, right?
Mhm.
Depending on, right. So my strategy now is to just wait, to see what happens. I need to see more of the technology that VeVe is going to bring, whether it's specifically for VeVe, the store, the VeVe verse, or ecomi, and
Mhm.
what they're going to do with the crypto token and how that's going to be utilized, in the ecosystem. I want to see more practical use and of the innovation of the technology so that it can give me clarity on where to go and where to put my investment, because it might be in the only token, or
Right.
it could be collectibles, or it could be building out my metaverse space, um, with hopes of being able to monetize some experience in the VVverse one day, right?
Yeah, that's fair. So you're basically just operating with extreme patience, which I think is admirable.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
find myself constantly like back and forth about, do I do more on the token? Do I do more on the collectibles? And I like your perspective of just being patient and waiting and seeing what's going to happen and then making the decision from there, and not just jumping on one or the other based off of hype or what the community's saying, but
Hmm.
relying on the team to see what the team's going to put forth and then making your judgments from there. So,
Yeah, yeah, they've plateaued a bit, and maybe it's a forced plateau because of the cycle that we're in, right? There's so many variables, right? But I guess we're all kind of waiting for the next evolution
mm,
and how we're going to experience all of this, right?
yeah, I agree. What would you say, even if you don't own them, like what are your top five collectibles and top five maybe comics?
Wow, top five collectibles.
Personal
Um,
opinion, obviously.
yeah, yeah, of course, of course. Um, I'm gonna have to go with the Rizzo Batman. Probably gonna be my top collectible. Um, After that, what comes to mind? Uh, and because it's treated me so well, I'm gonna have to say the Secret Rare Spider-Man,
Mm.
Peter Parker, the Peter Parker Secret Rare Spider-Man. Um, what else? Let me pull up my vault here, actually.
While you're doing that, why did you pick Rizzo as number one out of curiosity?
Um, Batman is definitely my favorite superhero.
Hmm.
Um, and the one that I identify with the most, maybe because I'm a Scorpio, I don't know. I don't know what Batman's sign is, but but the Rizzo Batman, the aesthetic of that Batman, I just love. It's like
You like the boots?
it it has like a punk rock bodybuilder type of thing. I don't know. It's just, you know, Rizzo, he just knew what he was doing when he made that Batman. I wish that was the FA, you know?
Yeah.
Um, what else? Of course, I like the Gold Ape, the
Mm. Yep.
the Little Friends Gold Ape. Is such a cool, and I love that that's considered like an art piece on VeVe, right? It's not like a character. It's just a piece. It's ambiguous and it's from, it's really old.
Hmm.
Um, the Ritmo,
Mm.
because I am half Jamaican, so the Ritmo is right there with me. And I'm gonna go finally with the Patrick Hughes
Mm.
pieces. Um, I'll say both of them. So I guess that's a good five, right? Rizzo, Peter Parker, Ritmo, Patrick Hughes,
I'm
and
surprised.
the ape. Yeah,
I'm surprised you didn't put the new Spider-Man in there.
yeah. I mean, I think that it's a better looking collectible, and overall, I think it is a better collectible. But you can't ignore how well that Peter Parker Spider-Man performed, and it is the
Great.
first of its kind. It contributes to so much success of not only for me but for VeVe itself and a lot of us, right? I mean, it's like giving Spider-Man a whole nother like meaning
Yeah.
in a way, if you could think about it that way, at least for us, right? So
Yeah.
I think I've gained a new appreciation for Spider-Man by how I've experienced collecting and trading them and experiencing it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
about comics?
Comics, that's a good one. Let's actually go into
You used to do quite a
my
bit of flipping with comics, I remember.
I did a lot of, yeah, comics definitely have been my biggest flips. Not biggest, but the most volume, of course. And probably
Mm.
for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Um Favorite comic is going to be the NYX comic.
Mm.
Um
I had a feeling you were going
the
to say that.
the Wolverine girl. That's just an excellent comic. It's one of the few comics I read.
Huh.
It was that was a must read for me. So that's number one. Two is going to be Days of Future Past, the X-Men book that just dropped not so long ago, about a month or two ago. That to me, that's the best. Ooh, it's definitely the best Marvel superhero story. It's hard to say better than maybe some DC stories. There's some Batman stories that are really cool, but just in terms of imagination
Mm.
and actually philosophy, um, and human philosophy in X-Men in general. But what that story does is it takes it into the future, and you include time travel in it. It's just so well done. So that's my second book. Um, Three would have to be wow. There's kind of a pick 'em there. I guess we can say Miles,
Mm.
Miles FA Ultimate Fallout 4.
Yeah.
Um, and after that, I guess we go Marvel Comics 1 and then AF-15. Although I've never owned an AF-15,
Mm.
I do think It's a nice book. It's a really nice book. Yeah,
Yeah. So I'm gathering that you are a bit of an X-Men fan. Is that fair?
absolutely. I'm old enough to have experienced um the cartoon
Yeah, that was
series
a good one.
in the 90s and remember them, you
Yeah.
know.
It was like a
Um,
Saturday morning cartoon, weren't they?
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. It was definitely the best thing about the weekend on TV. And yeah, I yeah, the big X-Men fan. So it's a little weird being in the day and age where we are now, where X-Men is not the number one thing about Marvel. It feels
Right.
weird, right?
Yeah.
Like that's like the first thing that I probably noticed in just like pop culture, where it's like we're like we're like, wow, like I guess I recognize that I am a little older than other people, and times change, right?
Yeah, but so how do you feel about speculation that we're going to get this crossover now with MCU? Do you think we're going to start seeing a lot more X-Men characters coming into back into film?
I don't know. I honestly don't watch enough Marvel to
Mm,
know or to be able to speculate. But if uh if how Marvel drops things on VeVe and their relationship there is a tell at all, then yeah, it looks just to safe to say that they will. I mean, I think that um done well, done right, the X-Men are should be the coolest thing about Marvel. It should
I'm
be.
excited for the Wolverine and Deadpool mashup that's coming pretty soon. That should be
Mm. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. I heard about that. Oh man, that's gonna be good.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
yeah,
excited for that one. All right, so switching gears a little bit, you're sort of one of the pioneers of the Twitter Spaces community that revolving around VeVe, and so what drove you or led you to get involved with Twitter and hosting spaces?
yeah. It's kind of hard to remember, but what I do know is that if you're in crypto and you're trading, there are certain personalities that you want to follow.
Mhm.
Um, they're not just, you know, YouTubers can't always YouTube, but they can tweet, right? So you eventually follow them on Twitter, and sometimes they'll drop signals, sometimes they'll tell you about a new project. That was that kind of world. And so while I was doing that, I think I may have stumbled upon something VeVe related on Twitter, and it might have been crypto khaki.
Okay.
Um, I I remember watching an interview crypto khaki did with someone. I can't remember who it was. It might have been NFT Pirates. I It's hard to remember, but um, he did a like an hour long interview, and it was like, I mean, I was already like kind of like buying and selling on VeVe at the time, but he, the way that he talked about VeVe, he sold it in a way that made me want to get more involved.
Mm.
Um, he just, he's like, I think Crypto Khaki is the Arthur C. Clarke of VeVe, and probably for a couple of other things too. By what he was talking about. I mean, I wish there was. I mean, I bet you can go back right now and listen to that interview. It's probably a year and a half old now, and
Mm.
listen to how he's talking about VeVe in that interview,
Look that up.
and you'll be able to understand, like it'll get anybody into the project who is kind of in that world, right? So
Right.
I think I found him on Twitter, and at the time it just felt like somebody who might not even be accessible, because like considering what his collection was, even at the time, was like this person will never talk to me, you know.
Yeah.
Um, so I and then VeVe kind of went through this. Well, I can't say VeVe, but the marketplace and value started to go down after the Comic Con, which I think was in July, mid July, and some people started to leave the project and try to go into other NFTs. And so I started to pay attention to other NFTs, and I started to jump into Bored Ape um, Twitter Spaces.
Mm,
And I learned a lot there. I learned a lot about how they run their community and how they interact with one another, how giving and generous they are, how um just how much they believed in what they were doing and nothing else really mattered. And it made me feel like like I didn't have that with VeVe. And so, or around VeVe. And
yeah.
it made me feel like I was missing out on something. Um, and then I realized that there were some Twitter spaces going on with VeVe people, 20 people, 13 people in a Twitter space.
Yeah.
And I think I hopped into one. I do believe Crypto Kaki was in there and a couple of people, and I just hopped into one. I was I think I had something to say, you know, and but before that I was talking to Kaki a little bit in the back channels about drops and drop tips, because back then drop tips were really important. So
Mm,
anyway,
yeah.
long story short, that's how I got into it. And in my role, I became someone uh who didn't I was committed to not putting a lot of fiat into the app and trading my way up to a big collection. Like, we knew there were people with big collections,
Right.
and for the people that were not rich but wanted to be a big player on VeVe, gravitated towards me.
Right.
Because I mean, it wasn't at the time, but at some point I took less than 2,500 bucks and flipped it up to a vault value of about 300K.
Too
Um,
shabby.
yeah, so I think those are the type of people that would come to Twitter Spaces to listen to me, and
Right.
I have hundreds at this point, maybe up to maybe upwards, going to like 1,000 messages of people that I interacted with, that either, you know that have a thank you, or just asking for, some vision on something, you know. So it's a very humbling thing, and I take my words and what I say more serious than what, I normally would when I'm speaking publicly now, you know.
Yeah, you definitely hold some pretty large size spaces. I mean, especially lately, it feels like yours is one of the when you're hosting spaces, it's one of the bigger ones that I see going on. What would you say? I know that you're very good at sort of being a middleman in certain situations when conflict arises or debates, and um, what would you say like your voices or the reasoning for you having sort of that stance in spaces, because you really have sort of gotten that role of being, you know, the person that just sort of stays in the middle when conflict arises.
Yeah, I think the trick is to, number one, you have to you have to be known first, right? You have to have some sort of platform, but the only way that works to be to have a meeting of the minds between all these personalities that we have, is to not be offended a
Mm,
lot. And when you are offended or insulted, you have to be able to handle it in a way where everyone can come out of it okay,
right.
right? I think that's the trick, because when you're on the internet, um, you're so far away from other people, theoretically at least, right? And it feels like you can sort of, it's almost like being drunk without being drunk, right? And people say things that they probably shouldn't say, right?
Right.
And and I'm a person that I still consider the internet, like, it's a bit of a catch-22. I consider the internet a real place, where, like, what you say has real life consequences, but at
Yeah.
the same time, it's still the internet, so you don't really take it that serious, right? And it's a very, very weird balance, you know, or a conflict or concept that if you can reconcile it, you can get pretty good at it, right? And I think that's why people kind of think I'm funny, because I do approach, you know, Twitter Spaces or just the internet in a very nonchalant way, but at the same time, there's a line for the kind of nonsense that can go on, right?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I've been somebody who uh allows people to have an opinion, to speak, but at some point, you know, I think that because I ultimately want there to be a meritocracy, that the best ideas went out, right? So you can't, you know, so in my spaces, you can't continue to say things that are untrue. You can maybe say something untrue once or twice, but once we know, we call it out, you know, things change. Um, but I think that uh, it's my mental toughness
Mm.
and I guess my real life toughness mixed with being, you know, not being offended or taking someone's opinion to heart, right? In a way that like bothers me. Like I allow people to say what they want, and then we can address it after that, rather than censoring people or
Right.
um, you know, judging people in a way. And you know, I like to hear people out, and then we can debate it with intellect, you know, and nuance and details, right? So I think that's why I've, you know, came out and, you know, to out of the pack to have that kind of reputation, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of people will just hit the block button or boot people. You know, it's to me it's okay.
Yeah. Well, I have to say I have massive respect for you because especially on the internet, I feel like a lot of the voices, it's if you don't agree with me, you're wrong, I don't like you, whatever. It's just very strong reactions. And what I like about you is you can get in an argument with somebody. We can have different opinions. You and I have had different opinions about things, but just because our opinions are different doesn't mean we don't still like each other as people.
Yeah,
And we realize that we are still humans, and it's okay to disagree about stuff. And so I have like massive, massive respect for you for being that way because not
I
everybody
appreciate
is.
that. I appreciate that. Yeah, and same for you. I mean, you're here because you essentially you do the same thing. You're a connector of people, and I think you deeply understand people and you want to understand people, right? So I think
Thank
we're
you.
kind of on the same path. Yeah. You're just doing a lot more with people in a more visual way, clearly here, right? Yeah.
But your role matters deeply, especially for the
Thank you.
community. So tell me what it was like. I came into Twitter Spaces a little bit later in the game, and I hear all these stories that, you know, David, you just used to come hang out. So tell me what that was like.
Yeah, he would pop in. I would say on average once a month. I would say on average once a month in the beginning months, maybe even more, because I wasn't always in Twitter Spaces like as much as I was around. He would come into spaces and, you know, obviously it'd be really late here in New York, you know, and he's in New Zealand or wherever he was at the time. So
Yeah.
I would miss him some of the time. Um, but yeah, not only that, but Alex would drop in a lot. Um, Reese would drop in, but mostly Alex and David. But yeah, that was really cool. There was a marathon that happened. I'm pretty sure you heard about the marathon, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I forgot how long it was. It was definitely at least a week, 24 hours. Someone which would be closing and they would hand it off to someone else. They would take it through the night into the morning. Um, those are really interesting times. And that's when I actually started to step back a little bit from hosting spaces a lot because that was going on. Right. I wasn't really needed too much. I mean, that's actually when I realized that like a lot of people that come to Twitter spaces who are involved in VeVe, they're not really participating because they're collectors. They're participating because they want the camaraderie and the companionship. And that makes up a lot of the weird dynamic that we have.
Yeah.
on Spaces, for example, right?
Right.
When you come into a VeVe Twitter space, but no one's talking about VeVe for hours.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So you have to quickly realize that like people are here because they just like to hang out. They have nothing better to do, or they are working and they're at the same time listening to Twitter spaces. Like like Roly is like running an entire business of hundreds of people, and he's in a Twitter space listening to to us like talk about collecting, right? So just I don't know how I have to figure out how he does this one day.
I know, right?
We'll figure out when you interview him, but um yeah, so that's when I figured out that I have a niche,
Mhm.
and that niche is focusing on the market, focusing on maximizing the market. And there were a few people around that wanted to only hear about market stuff, and that's kind of when my spaces really took off in like the fall and into the winter. And yeah.
So if there's like one question on your mind right now that you could ask David, do you know what that is?
Man, I'm probably one of the only people that don't have a ton of questions for the team, to be honest with you. I think the only questions I really ever had were ones where I would know that they fully intend on coming through with their plans and making the platform um, uh, operational in a way that anyone can come here and participate, which they can now. Now, obviously, we still have a bit of a weird thing where you need $1,000 to of gems to be able to cash out. But
I think it's down to 500 now, or is that not, is that not?
oh, I
Yeah.
actually don't know. See, it could be, right. Um, like other than that, like I think maybe the only questions left are um, you know, what's going to happen with the OMI token. And I know we have a roadmap for that, the OUP article and stuff. And but I just at some point, as an as someone who thinks like an artist and 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 a creator, I don't want the movie spoiled for me. You know what I mean? I don't want to know if something is coming out in like 3 months or a year. I don't really care. I'm cool with being surprised.
Hmm.
As someone who's an investor, would I want a little inside information on things sometimes? Yeah, that would be nice in that way, but I don't really need it though. I don't
Mhm.
need it. Like if I stumbled upon information by accident, if someone told me something that's coming early, that'd be nice. Um but I think that just always asking them about things that are going to happen in the future, if it's not directly related to the health of the company or something like that, then I think you should just go along for the ride and let them surprise and delight you. You know,
Right.
that's kind of my thing. So
Sure.
yeah, I probably don't have any specific questions for for David right now.
What about do you have an opinion on some of their, maybe their greatest strengths and weaknesses as a company?
I think I mean, there's a lot of strengths. I think
Yeah.
the greatest weakness would be something that it seems like they've overcome, so it's probably not a weakness anymore. But so I think I would have to try to find the weakness, and it would probably be something really small to complain about. But before, the weakness was um the narrative of there were two narratives. One narrative was that we had a lot more users
Hmm.
with the genuine intent versus intent to either defraud the company and otherwise, um, and also uh, the narrative that the metaverse was closer than what it was. Because what I realized early on is like when David would come into these spaces or they would have AMAs on the VV Twitter, um, they would field a lot of questions about like future features and stuff like that that were probably years away. And I think that
Mhm.
would fuel a lot of FOMO
Right.
into
Get that.
into collectibles. It generated probably millions of dollars of transactions. And granted, people that had patience and vision were able to take advantage of that. That's always good, to take advantage of what people are speculating about. And VeVe doesn't really have any responsibility, any technical responsibility for what they talk about. If they're excited about their technology, that's cool. But I think that it ultimately backfired a bit, for some for them, because some people took what they said so serious and felt like they owed them something, right? And it's like,
Right.
if the majority of the people of the mob agree on something, then it kind of supersedes what you think is right.
Right.
That's just how life works, right? Like, there's the court of public opinion, right? So at a point in time, you say, well, we all want KYC, and we knew that wasn't going to get rid of the bots, but the mob wanted it.
Right.
So the mob got it, and VeVe was able to sell that to people as something that we wanted rather than what they wanted as an immediate thing. Because from what I know, is that Dan was very, and at least was, and probably still is, very interested in protecting users' privacy
Mhm.
and their freedom. I don't want to get into a bunch of crypto philosophy and anarcho-capitalistic stuff, but but we know largely that KYC is just a tool for the global banking elite to monitor us, to be able to tax us on everything that is ever going to exist, right? It's mostly for tax purposes. It's not for your protection. It's not to protect insured banking institutions from money laundering or any type of fraud like that. They're going to make money, and on top of money regardless, right? Um so so KYC, for example, just being sold to us as something that is going to help us, right? Like, just, it just wasn't the case. So but it's just a point to make that, what the people want, they will get if it becomes loud enough, you
Yeah.
know.
Um, so what do you think you're looking forward to most with either the future of where the app is going or the VV verse, like, or whatever it is that is most interesting to you at this point? What's your, I mean, obviously the token and utility with that. What other sort of things are you most looking forward to or hoping for?
Yeah, I'm mostly looking forward to experiences that keep me engaged. And it doesn't necessarily have to be experiences that generate money or income or anything like that. I think that is mostly going to be mostly involving the VVverse, right? The metaverse, your space that you get to build out and customize. We'll see how that unfolds over this next year. The roadmap is very tight for this year. I mean, by the end of the year, they're saying entry level gamification. I mean, like, it's just insane stuff, insane. So for me, it's definitely just the experiences that keep me engaged,
Mhm.
that keeps me engaged, and I think that's it. I think that's all I'm really looking forward to. Um, Now, on the investment side, uh, I would like to come back into the platform much heavier than I am now. I'm just coming back on a very, nonchalant. I do a drop here, I do a flip there, and I've done well. I've, I mean, this is a bear market, but from the miles drop to now, I mean, I've made thousands of dollars. I've
For
I've
you.
made I've made thousands of dollars just flipping every now and then, but that comes from experience. That comes from, really dialing in and knowing what I'm doing. That not everyone can do, obviously, but uh But in terms of an investment, I would like to come back into the platform with large sums of money to buy up things and take, control of certain collectibles, that I really personally like, just for fun. That's something that I think is very possible. Um, and yeah, I think that's about it.
So what that we don't have right now, like what collectible or piece of art or brand are you like most looking forward to or hoping for?
Mm. I would like to see Metal Gear Solid NFTs. Um, who knows what platform they'll be on? Be nice if they're on V. But I don't think Konami would give them up. They're very tight. They won't even. I mean, they've been propositioned with hundreds of millions of dollars to make a movie out of Metal Gear Solid, and they turned it down. So
Wow.
probably probably not going to happen. But I would like to see some video game IP. I would like to see, yeah, Metal Gear Solid. I would like to see Fallout. Um, I would like to see Dragon Ball Z. I think Dragon Ball Z would make it would take the level of fun
Mm,
from like a 10 to a 25.
yeah,
It would just be so fun. Even with like not even animated collectibles, just still the statues would make VeVe so much more fun than what it
really.
already is. I'm telling you, it would be insane, insane how I think Dragon Ball Z is more important than Pokemon.
Wow.
I think it is. And that might be because I don't fully grasp Pokemon and how collectible and tradable it is,
Right.
or not only that, but like how people engage with the story of the characters or
Hmm.
the monsters, right? Like, but with the Dragon Ball Z, there's like endless little duels and competitions you can have, and just and of course aesthetics.
Yeah.
So I think those are, pardon me, those are some of the top ones. As well as Beavis and Butthead. I want to see Beavis and Butthead NFTs.
That's pretty
Um,
funny. That would be super memeable.
that's a must. We need Beavis and Butthead too. Yeah.
So, what do you think is necessary for us to see? And this is like a kind of loaded question, but for us to see a turnaround in the market, what do you think it's going to take?
Wow. Turn around in the market. I think it would there would be, there would be multiple things would have to happen. I think that crypto would actually be the first thing that comes to mind is crypto. That there would need to be a lot of value coming back into crypto and altcoins, which would mean a lot of money coming back into the OMI token.
Right.
And then I think you'll see people that put in minimal amounts of money into the OMI token and turn that into a lot of money. And then in turn, they'll want to buy a lot of stuff on the VV store.
Yeah.
I think that's it, it's as simple as that. But with that said, I do think that because we're going to continue to drop things, I think the people that have the biggest bags have become the most patient
Hmm.
now. And that's
Hmm.
sort of just the way it goes, right? Like they're overzealous when the getting is good, but they're even more patient when nothing's happening, right? They're much willing to sell and wait, um, or not sell and just wait, right?
Right.
So, and I think everyone in between are the ones that are getting antsy. It's like, well, I need to do something,
Right.
you know. So I think another thing that can contribute to a turnaround in the market is, and I've been saying this since my you know, first couple of times speaking publicly about VeVe, whether on Spaces or wherever, is that people need a reason to buy and hold things.
Yeah.
Um, if there's no reason to buy and hold, people treat the game like it's just a game, which is you need to trade,
Right.
right? And I as a market person, I've watched the market very closely, and people will sell things just for excitement,
Mm,
not, and with
you're right.
maybe the prospect of trying to like turn a new good deal on something like.
Yeah.
And I think that people have kind of been forced to get out of that mindset now.
Hmm.
And I think that going forward, if there's reason to buy and hold something, you have less flippers. Now, flippers, but we need to keep bringing flippers in because that's good. Ultimately, if there's no flippers, then it's like it becomes a weird bubble and then it bursts, right? So flippers have to contribute, and then you have to have collectors kind of buying and holding. Um, but what was I gonna say? Uh, yeah, people have to get out of um the boredom and have a reason to hold. And and to me, the number one reason that's gonna make that happen is uh the metaverse, the, the VeVe makes it real for people, right?
Yeah.
When you buy something that looks cool, just being able to display it on your phone and take a picture of it momentarily is not enough. Um, and so the way that branches off is that it's not just going to be superhero stuff. It's going to be other luxury goods or other cool or rare things that exist in physical reality, whether it's licensed or not, are going to be the things that people are going to want to buy and hold. And whether or not that contributes to value that you can realize gains on or losses is a whole nother conversation. I think it's going to get a lot more complicated to be able to notice, to know where you're going to be able to derive value from. Um, and it's going to look a lot different 3 months from now in the app. What you think you were going to make money on is going to be totally different than what it's going to be, I think,
Mhm.
especially with the metaverse coming in. I think you're going to see a pump that is kind of expected on a lot of collectibles,
Right.
like Todd, like the Walt Disney, and Mickey Mouse, the partner statue. Like you're gonna see very obvious things go up in value that people are gonna want. But ultimately, I think VeVe needs to make certain things real for people to where, you have this visual, virtual social network
Hmm.
that where anyone can come in, and then the way they're building it out is beautiful and brilliant. You send a link to someone, they open it up, and they can share your space,
Hmm.
right? Once you have that, people will buy and hold a lot more stuff. And I think that's the most natural way to see a turnaround in the market is for people feeling like they need to hold things. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Um, what do you think Vivi has that other projects don't, if anything? I mean, do you think there's anything specific that sort of um, sets them apart from competitors?
Um, wow, it's maybe hard to say because of the other than the obvious, I think maybe the thing that probably really does separate them the most. I mean, and it's a weird thing to answer because like there's some things that are really great that separate them, but then there's other things that according to like a lot of people, I mean, I don't, it's not a lot I can complain about, but like some people just think that they're so behind on certain things, like certain things in the technology or the innovation in the app, right? So, but I think the thing that stands out the most and that people do point out from time to time is the dedication and the resilience of the founders and
Absolutely.
how hard they work. I don't know how hard they work. I really don't. But I I hear the excitement and the tunnel vision of
Hmm.
for them to get done what they think needs to be done. And some things contradict that every now and then. But I do think that from what I hear, and I've met them, and I've talked to Dan quite a bit, and I think that they're very knowledgeable. Like there are certain like founders and CEOs of some things, and they're just not that knowledgeable about what goes into their business anymore. They've kind of just become someone who are just about the numbers, or you know, something like that. Whereas like, and that kind of makes sense, but like you always have a feeling that they're as busy and as far out that they need to be into the logistics. They're still very in tune with what makes VeVe cool.
Hmm.
And I think that's what makes them stand out, not just in the competitive companies, but like almost all companies, to be honest with you. For as big as this company is going to be, I feel good that they're always going to be connected to what makes VP cool.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. For me, also, it's just the IPs, and for one company to be able to secure so much, that to me is a standout. And then obviously the community. I mean, you see all these other
Mhm.
projects that are trying to poach off of our community for to help sponsor them and bring them up. And it's like this community is very special, and it's very, very difficult to replicate. And every other, project that's up and coming definitely looks to our community, and they're comparing and contrasting and what can we do to get to
Yeah.
that level. So I think those are a couple other things that really make VeVe stand out. But I'm like so in concurrence with you about the leaders, and the team, and how yeah, passionate. You worded it so well. How passionate they are. I mean, I will say, I went to Disneyland with them, and David was on his phone quite a bit, and he was working. I mean, he was setting
Hmm.
the mint price, and the mint size run for the bat signal while at lunch. Like
Hmm.
it's a nonstop job, and
Yeah.
they don't take a lot of breaks. So I props to that, and also to the fact that they are so smart about what they're doing and enjoy it, really enjoy it. But yeah, we'll
Hmm.
have a conversation with like Dan. I'm just like, man, this guy's smart. Like
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
intelligent and very focused, and driven. So
Hmm.
so speaking of focus and drive, I feel like you are um there's a lot we don't know about you. What sort of other projects or things are you involved in that you're willing to share in your normal everyday life?
Yeah. Thanks for asking that. So I I basically stopped working um probably, I guess, a year or two before getting back into crypto and stuff. So I've just been on my own trying to be creative about what I want to do. Because I know that ultimately whatever I settle in doing or give my time to, I want it to be something that I have creative input on, or where I can kind of take anywhere, right? But ultimately to develop a business or a portfolio that just brings me an income. So over the past year, I've been working on a brand um, that I've conceptualized many years ago, but I just wasn't sure if it was the right thing. Just going into a bunch of different things, obviously crypto and all this stuff. But it's essentially a clothing brand, and it's Web3 inspired,
Hmm,
and there's a Web3 component to it. So it's a physical and digital thing. Um, and this is it here. It's called Plasti. This is
nice.
the logo, or one of the logos. And so yeah, it's basically like a crypto culture inspired clothing brand. And so there'll be NFTs, there'll be a reward system, and there will be also digital art to go along with it.
Very cool.
And hopefully augmented reality artwork that comes along with it. But it's definitely going to be mostly just like this cheeky brand that exploits crypto culture in many different ways. But it is also very tasteful and like a highbrow streetwear type of type of way. If that makes sense,
Yeah,
you know.
I get it.
So yeah, it's in the works. I'm still working out a lot of logistics and manufacturing, because I'm really into quality and textures and things like that. So I have a soft launch coming about the maybe the first or second week of January, and I expect it to be, I probably sound like VeVe here. You know, Q1 it's gonna be out Q1.
You're like, now I understand.
Q1, hopefully. Yeah. But that's kind of what I've been doing. And I've been contemplating a lot about a proprietary NFT community that I want to build for investors and collectors. As you know, I formed a group before, the Omikongs,
Mhm.
and it was strictly around um, having a community of market people that just kind of go out into the market and snipe. I mean, back then, we would have a drop, and for the next 3 to 5 days, the market would be hot. For that one collectible, right? It's not like that anymore. It's like volume dies in about an hour, right? So
Yeah.
like, but back then, it'd be days, of
Yeah.
sniping, so you needed a Twitter space or a community of people that got together to tackle these things. And I created a social club sort of around that, but the NFT wasn't ours, right? It belongs to someone else. Someone's getting paid for that.
Right.
Um, and I don't necessarily think I want to really focus on getting paid for this new NFT community I want to build. I might make it a free mint, and whoever wants to mint it, they mint it. They just pay they pay the gas, and then they can be a part of the club, right? And but it's not going to be anything that I like heavily promote or anything like that. It'll just be a really small thing that people can participate in if they wish. And I think it'll be as simple as that. And maybe in the future I'll grow it out to be something else. Um but other than that, other than those things that have to do with kind of close to what we're into,
Yeah.
I do have two other businesses that I have, that I'm working on, that I'm building funding for, essentially just using a lot of leverage. Um, that's what me and my best friend do slash business partner. We use a lot of leverage to make
Huh.
money.
Is that the person that
With
I've met a couple of times?
Yep,
Yeah.
yep,
Nice guy.
him. Um, yeah, we we have a lot of plans, a lot of tools, and a lot of things that we're using to to generate a lot of capital too. So
That's
and but
exciting.
and that's going to be for like real estate ventures and all of that stuff like that. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, thank you for sharing. I love getting to know you a little bit better, and I'd love to stay in the loop with you about your your fashion stuff that you have going on, and I find that super interesting. So, please keep me posted, and wish you all the best of success with all of your ventures. It's amazing.
I really appreciate that. Yeah, and I noticed you've been going crazy with these interviews, and I love it. And I love the interview with you and Josh. I mean,
Oh, he
getting
was good
him
one.
getting him out the cave, that's big. I think to date, I think that's my favorite one
Oh
from
yeah,
you.
thanks.
That was really great. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, and anytime you can get him to talk, I mean, you learn a lot. You learn a
I
lot.
know. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I feel the same way with this one, though. I think people are really going to love it. You've dropped some amazing knowledge, and your perspective is a lot different than most, but very much needed in this community and valued. So,
Yeah.
on that note, I want to say thank you for your time, and this was a great talk. And hopefully, we'll do it again sometime. Maybe we'll get both you and Josh at the same time.
That would be crazy. That
Be
actually
fun,
be
right?
really crazy. Yeah. But yeah, Magic, I really appreciate it. This is my first ever interview for anything. And
Wow.
so you got the FA. That's
Yay,
it.
thank you. And you crushed it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. All right, thank you.
All right, thanks. Bye,
All right,
everybody.
see ya.